Now, it's fair to say that visual effects, CGI, has got a bit of a bad reputation, as if it's just explosions and green screens, no substance. Then if you add to that all of the time and skill that's required for a good visual effects shot, then you can understand why a lot of filmmakers go for projects that aren't too heavy on the visual effects. But I don't want it to be laziness and kind of blockbuster stereotypes that stop me from learning about something. So this week I thought we'd try some simple effects that low budget filmmakers can use for more creative freedom. This first one is real simple. Imagine that you're editing away and you realise that the microphone has accidentally shown up in the frame of one of your good takes. So do we just scrap that whole take even if it's a good performance? Or do we spend the time and money doing a reshoot? Of course, the third option would be to say those infamous words, "Let's fix it in post." So I got in touch with Peter France, a visual effects artist, and basically asked if he could help me out. And this first one was pretty quick. He motion tracked the footage in After Effects, then found a frame without the microphone in it to use as like a patch over the problem. After parenting that to the motion tracking data, you can see how it now moves with the camera. He combined the two, and you'd never know that the microphone was there in the first place. Now, the reason we're not going into the full click-by-click how to do this exactly is because this is just about the core principles. You could remove a microphone like this, or you could get rid of a light that wasn't supposed to be there, or a cable that was running across the set that no one noticed. Sometimes productions even decide it's actually easier to paint something out later than it would be to just hide it from the camera in the first place. So if you want to make use of the power of painting things out, then just have a quick search for a motion tracking tutorial and how to remove objects, and you'll find plenty of tutorials out there. So this next one is matte painting or set extension. It's really common in shows like Game of Thrones, must often be cheaper or faster to simulate things than actually building this stuff. Now obviously those are very complex shots, but we can do it on a smaller scale. Take for example this shot. Say we wanted a mountain in the background, but we didn't want to spend the money traveling somewhere that had a mountain. We could just find a 2D image and motion track the footage just like last time, do a bit of quick color correction so it matches, and then carefully mask around the foreground so we can bring it in front of the mountain. Now that's a bit of a silly example, but again it's about the technique that you could apply to all kinds of things. For example, sky replacement is pretty common if you don't want to wait for the perfect cloud formation. Now, one of the core principles of visual effects, I'm told, is that it's often better to combine the digital trickery with something real, a practical effect. So if you're going to add some fake fire to a shot, it's worth adding some real light to the scene when you're on set, making sure it's orange and flickering slightly. That way, when the fake flames are added, the shadows and reflections around it will be a lot more realistic. On a smaller scale, let's say we're going for a cliche haunted house effect, where objects start levitating and moving around. We could spend ages designing an entirely digital book from scratch and texturing it and animating it to float around the room with all the reflections and all the little details, but it's probably going to take a lot of time to make that look realistic. So instead, we just taped some thread to some real books and yanked them off the shelf. Then Peter could use the same painting out technique from the first shot to remove those strings. So for the last shot, we wanted to try something that wouldn't be safe or possible without visual effects. So say if you wanted to have someone look as if they're walking along a roof. To do that by the book, you'd need a stunt coordinator, all kinds of safety precautions, and a very good insurance package. Plus you'd need permission from the property owner and a way to get up on the roof. So it's not that easy to do on an indie film. So instead we found a staircase, which meant I could have the camera looking up to roughly match the perspective of a camera on the ground looking up at the roof. Then I got a shot of the roof we were supposed to be on, and we were careful to make sure we were facing the same way so that the light was identical. Now we probably should have been more mathematical about matching up the angles and the distances so that all of the perspective would match up perfectly, but this seemed close enough for the demo. So with a bit of rotoscoping to cut him out from the background, then after lowering the contrast since he's further away, adding a slight edge glow and a bit of blur, then he blends in much better. So for me at least, this has been a nice reminder that visual effects don't just have to be about sci-fi and creating entirely new characters out of CGI. Actually, it can be just a really helpful tool to have available to indie filmmakers, basically just to expand our options. So big thanks to Peter for helping out with the visual effects, his channel's linked below, and also thanks to Squarespace who have sponsored this video. Every filmmaker needs a portfolio, and let's be honest, most of us aren't web designers and don't really get excited by the idea of trawling through a bunch of HTML code. So Squarespace, with their all-in-one platform, basically just makes it really easy to create your own website. If you're interested, you can go to squarespace.com/DSLRguide to get yourself a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. Get yourself set up with a template and basically have a really slick looking website set up in no time. So yeah, my name's Simon Cade, it's been DSLR Guide, and I'll see you next week.